Dustin and the Gilly. Can it work on Islam Makhachev? And have there been any patterns in Islam's career of him getting caught by guillotines? Well, let's take a deep dive onto this, because there is a possibility here that Dustin can get Islam in a guillotine, maybe. The biggest thing is that Islam is going to expect it. Dustin constantly going for it like he does ruins the element of surprise, so helps Islam defend the guillotine. But Islam has been caught in the guillotine multiple times earlier in his career. Like for an example, when he fought Chris Wade and Nick Lentz, and you'll see Islam throw his head into the opponent's chest or their sides to either hold or pass positions, which has gotten him caught by guillotines. But Islam is fast at moving his legs out of the grip from getting into like full guard or something like that. He's much better moving his legs and body out of it than he is moving his head out from the choke. Islam has never been caught into a full guard while getting choked, allowing him to escape it entirely. So Islam has been vulnerable to the choke of the guillotine, but he's tricky with his lower body for the opponent to get him in the grip, keeping him in the choke. This is also similar to Khabib. Even when Dustin pulled the guillotine on Khabib, the choke itself was tight, but he couldn't get full body control on him. You can see how Khabib was constantly focused on escaping the grip of the right leg so he can lean to his side to relieve the choke. And that was the thing that caused a lot of issues for Dustin to complete that submission. But there's a difference between Khabib and Islam on what they do to get themselves caught by guillotines. Khabib has gotten caught more by guillotines when he shoots for takedowns, but Islam's gotten caught by more guillotines while he's grappling with his opponent on the ground. And when I was talking about how Islam would put his head into the chest or the sides of his opponent, Khabib will do the same thing, but the reason why he's not getting caught by the guillotines as much on the ground is because he's much more active with his ground and pound than Islam is. Khabib will make his opponents worry about the punches raining down on them, allowing him to not get caught in guillotines or other submissions as much, right? Instead of the opponent focusing on getting a submission, they have to just focus on not getting pummeled under Khabib. Islam is way less active with his ground and pound. He's much more willing to just purely grapple with you than Khabib will, naturally allowing his opponents to focus on the grappling techniques of Islam more than anticipating ground and pound strikes. This is why you have seen Islam get caught in many more submissions than Khabib has, even excluding the guillotines. Now, the guillotine over the years hasn't been the most effective finishing technique in the lighter divisions. As far as I know, the last time an elite fighter from 155 pounds and down who won by a guillotine was Davison Figueiredo submitting Alex Perez in 2020. It's been 4 years since like a top 5 fighter from lightweight to flyweight has won by a guillotine. And lightweights specifically have gotten very good at defending the guillotine over the years. Dustin has good technique, but his opponents are just better at defending it. Now, I know Islam is also talking about, he's like gassing up Dustin's guillotine almost like he wants Dustin to go for it in their fight. I don't actually believe he respects it as much as he's saying. I mean, he could. I could be wrong on that, but I think he's also playing a bit of mind games with Dustin, hoping he pulls it just to show off what would happen if he did. And Islam has been caught in guillotines before, and the reason why he's probably so confident against it is because he's so much better than his previous opponents on understanding of how to get out of the guillotine. And for sure throughout the training camp of this fight, he's been drilling for the guillotine constantly. So you can see in these sequences, right here, Islam counters the knee from Chris Wade with a single leg takedown. So he's going to catch the knee, bring his head to the outside, and try to dump him over to the right. As Wade drops and tries to get his balance, Islam redirects to the left with his takedown, and this drive gives Wade the opening for the guillotine, even though his left leg is still in between Islam's legs. So he's not going to be able to get the full guard unless he pulls that out first, gets it around Islam, securing the position. Now, the choke around Islam's neck is very tight. As you can see, Islam grimacing. He got caught in a good choke, but he didn't allow his opponent to get the full guard. He made sure to keep his half guard position on top and started to push down on that left knee to push himself out of the half guard. He's sliding his other leg out of the half guard position and also keeping Wade's left leg from circling around to get the full guard. So it's doing both of those. And notice Islam's left hand. He goes from trying to pull off the grip to not even bother with the choke. His entire focus is going to be on just getting out of the position, which he does. Now, you can see something quite similar with Dustin Poirier versus Khabib. So Khabib does the same thing as Islam while on the ground, but Khabib gave up his neck on the takedown, whereas Islam gave up his neck while grappling on the ground. So a big shot from Khabib hits the ground and then pushes Dustin up against the cage. This driving force is going to push Khabib's head further into Dustin's side, and Dustin snatches onto that guillotine. He does jump for it. He brings his left leg around, but notice that Khabib is hooking around Dustin's right leg, and he also steps his left foot to the left side. He's making sure Dustin's right leg is not going to get around him. Therefore, he's going to have an opening to move out of the guard. So Dustin has the arm in guillotine. He has a right butterfly hook. Left leg is around to hold the guard. And just like Islam was pushing down on the left leg of Chris Wade, Khabib is pushing down Dustin's right leg and starts leaning to that side, sitting in half guard on top of Dustin. This relieves a lot of the choke itself. Now the choke around the neck is very tight on Khabib, but just like Islam, instead of focusing on the choke, he's focusing on getting out of the position. So he leans his entire body to the left side, which is going to slightly elevate Dustin Poirier above him. And intelligently, Dustin is trying to get up from here. You can see him posturing up, but Khabib has that right underhook and forces Dustin to the ground again, putting himself almost into the guard once more, where he has to push down that left leg and starts leaning flat to his left side. There is no choke here. The choke gets slightly relieved, and then Khabib was able to pull his head out of the choke. So preparing the position to get the full guard on Islam when he pulls the guillotine is very important for Dustin. If he had the full guard on Khabib right there, he potentially could have won that fight, but Khabib thought about the position before Dustin did. Dustin just pulled the guillotine once he had the choke and got driven to the fence. But in that moment, Khabib was thinking about the position when he does pull the guillotine. So he was thinking a step ahead of Dustin, and Islam does the exact same thing. So there's another sequence here when Islam fought Chris Wade. He actually got reversed. Wade reversed Islam to get on top, and Islam shrimps up into Wade, which causes him to get caught by another arm and guillotine, because shrimping like this moves the head into the opponent's body, which can give up the neck. But Wade raises his posture while doing this, and Islam's able to get in a good position under him where he can rock back and flip Wade over, getting himself out of the control position while inside the guillotine still. Always thinking about the position rather than fighting off the hands. Or you can see right here where Islam is rising into a takedown from the ground and gets caught in another guillotine for it. Islam takes Wade's balance away by pushing him to the cage, raising Wade's right leg up with his left arm at the same time, and positioning his right leg further outward. This is similar to what Khabib did to Dustin when he pushed him up against the fence with the takedown, but Islam's doing it with the right leg instead. He's positioning that right leg outward to not get put in the full guard when Wade pulls the guillotine. Again, focusing entirely on the position and not the choke itself. Or you can see in this fight with Islam versus Nick Lentz. Nick Lentz maneuvers for a headlock, and the mere threat of the guillotine triggers Islam to start escaping the full guard. You can see how he's trying to step around Lentz, trying to get into the half guard position or even a full mount, but Islam was way too hasty. Lentz commits to the guillotine this time, but not to try and finish Islam. He does it to flip him over for a better position, which Dustin can absolutely do as well. Instead of focusing on finishing Islam, he can use the guillotines to just get a better position, because we do know that Islam does respect the guillotine where he will react in this kind of way, and he's expecting Dustin to go for the guillotine as well, but he might be thinking, Dustin's going to try to finish me with a guillotine and not necessarily set me up for like punches or just to get up from the ground or something like that. Islam was able to keep himself on top, but the choke was tight, and Islam made sure to keep that right leg from walling him inside of that guard. And this use of a guillotine for positions is actually something Dustin did against Benoit Saint Denis. Not necessarily on the ground, but he did it to get him in better positions in the stand-up. Like for instance, when Benoit Saint Denis is going for a takedown and Dustin's back is up against the fence, he can threaten the guillotine merely to just rotate both him and the opponent. So instead of him being backed up to the fence, he gets his opponent backed up to the fence while also holding onto that guillotine at the same time. And he'll be in control of the disengagement. So if he wants to just let go of it and start throwing punches at Islam, he's the one that can do that. And in fact, this is what led up to him knocking out Benoit Saint Denis. Benoit shot another double leg up against the fence. Dustin pulled in the high elbow guillotine, which is a very dangerous choke. BSD is trying to pull himself out of it, and with that momentum, Dustin's able to rotate around. Now Benoit Saint Denis' back is closer to the fence, and instantly while BSD got his head out of it, Dustin was able to crack him with the left hand, which is something he can absolutely do to Islam Makhachev as well if Islam pulls his head out of the guillotine, or even if Dustin just merely lets go of it and starts throwing punches. And that eventually put BSD into a striking sequence with Dustin where he was just outskilled. And that's pretty much the end of the breakdown, guys. So Dustin absolutely can get the guillotine on Islam if he focuses on the position as much as Islam does, rather than just the choke itself, and he can use the guillotine to better his striking opportunities against Islam rather than just trying to finish him with it. And I think if he uses the guillotine in that way, it will help him a lot more throughout this fight. So I hope you guys enjoyed the breakdown, and if you did, make sure to give this video a like, make sure to subscribe, hit the bell for notifications, and I'll see you guys in the next video.